Hi, Sportster Paul. We got our work digs on. I'm going to try to get this case half stripped, cleaned, and bead blasted this show. It's the right case half. I've also decided to, I just hate this stud. I thought, you know, it's like the worst 1982 Iron Sportster, worst of all worlds. It's still got this big stud to hold a sprocket cover on, but it no longer goes all the way through and mounts the peg. The peg mounts to the sprocket cover, so when you drop the bike on its right side, it cracks the sprocket cover in half. So I have this cheap, can you see the sky cam here? Cheap Taiwan Harbor Freight bearing driver, and they're never quite the right size. This one at least pilots up. I do have that arbor press that I use to press the flywheels out of the other case half. But usually, and especially because I'd probably buy new bearings here, these are the 4 cam bearings. They have to be driven out from the inside. There's a lip here. You will break your cases if you do it any other way. That's the chief tip. Let's see if I can at least loosen it. No? I thought I felt it move. There, that little crack. Can you see it on the sky cam? Or maybe, oops, maybe this cam? Just that little crack. Now, I usually use a socket, you know, before I bought the $3 Harbor Freight thing. But once again, you got to be sure. I like the socket, the drive side of the socket, right? Can't even remember, 3/8 drive socket, because it gets out a little further than the particular size for this. So let's go here and see. Use the plastic side of the mallet. Sometimes steel actually works better. Man, these are in there. They're coming. Wait a minute, they might have cost you. I'm probably doing it the wrong side and breaking the case on this side. I think they took the lip off. Another cost reduction. Because I don't feel a lip here. It's just smooth. So probably tighten them up so they don't move. Ouch, be careful. So, that's one. You know me and cleanliness. Let's get our plastic bag. If you do ever want to use these, or your poor brother-in-law needs a set of cam bearings. Well, I don't have any new that I can give you, but I got these ones that are pretty good. The deal with roller bearings, they look fine. They'll even feel fine. But what's happening is they're getting a little, you know, from bending. They actually squish as it goes around, and it puts little micro fractures. So they'll be fine until all of a sudden they'll spall off all kinds of material on the rollers, skip, blue, burn, melt. So like when I talked to Duncan, the motor builder in San Jose that taught me so much, it's like, well, you just replaced, you know, look at this bearing, it turns. He's like, yeah, I got to warranty this motor. I have no idea how old or how worn out or how ready to failure. So I don't know, these days it's probably 20, it's probably 50 bucks for a set, but let's, I guess we'll try our little driver again. A little pressure down, right, so it stays nice and square. Use the plastic side of the hammer. And I don't like that. Let's try my old 40-year-old Plum carpenter's hammer. The steel on steel gives a little more shock that I'm hoping. The bore on the one I took out feels okay. So let's try this. Like I say, this 9/6, I think I told you 9/16. Oh, I'm sorry, 11/16. A 3/4 almost certainly won't fit. And a 17 millimeter, darn it, is looser. So 11/16 is, come on, Paul, here we go. It's nice and tight. And like I say, use the blunt end, not the curved end. You're trying to get out towards the edges so you don't curl. I've done it, you know, hack too small, curled the Timken, and that's no good. Or I'm sorry, I said Timken. This is Torrington. The little needle bearings are Torrington. They even put a Torrington here. I bumped myself with the plastic. I'm not going to do that. All righty. Get it up, right? Keep it clean as soon as you can. Get it in the bag. Should we keep this method or? God, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be. Safe enough. That didn't feel good. You know, it feels like it's cocking. Let's put the tool, quote unquote. And switch to the 11/16, keeping your hands. Oh, I'm making a big mistake because I want to show good habits, except I've lost it. Why did I have these safe? Anytime you're hitting or hammering or using that press, safety glasses, grinding stuff. So, my bad. Lesson learned, all right. This goes, get the bearing right away. As you hammer, dirt falls, so you get the bearings as you go. So maybe the little Harbor Freight junker is worth it. A little down pressure. My grandfather used to hammer like that, old Bethlehem steelworker. You know, hit it, a little tap and then drive. Oh, Grandpa. Good old boy. Croatian, Bethlehem steel, Cleveland, Ohio. Born in, or married in Barracksville, West Virginia. Worked in the coal mines for 29 cents a day. Oops, lost my mic. Hang on. This shirt, the collar is so low, it's pulling the mic apart. So, Skycam, you can see this. I'm going to pause because I'm a little bit befuddled. I read and I read. You know, I told you to get the service manual, the Harley service manual. You can get a Haynes as well. And then the parts manual. You know, this is different, 77. There's an inner race, 70, or, you know. So, to me, it looks like this one, which I probably would save. This looks like a low mileage motor, right? It looks like you just press it out. And like I said, they've changed this case from when there was a lip on the inside. I guess you could, that could be a nightmare, right? You drive them in. But as I said, there's that tool, if it's assembled, if flywheel's in it, there's this tool that goes in and sprongs and gets from the back, and then a slide hammer, and you can replace them. Ooh, I didn't. Trying to teach good habits, and all I'm doing is bad stuff. Okay, so we got this saved. I think I'm going to get the bearing out before. Like I say, this thing just annoys me so much. You might have to take a little torch here. Oh, the counter shaft. There's another good opportunity. Can you see it? Counter shaft bearing is this one here. It's another too big. Too big. It's probably the same one. I broke a case here. This is where Pat worked at Harley Sunnyvale, now closed. You know, they had tools there. I was working at the Harley shop. I burned up a piston, and so they said, oh, you can tear down the motor and do some of the work, save some money. I doubt any Harley dealer lets you do that now. So he said, I asked him, Pat, is this the drive that, you know, pushes this out? Yeah, I think so, he said. So I put it there. I think it was for these up here, right? It was a little bit bigger, and I cracked the case and broke this out. Fortunately, I had a little shop that was next to a machine shop, and they were nice enough to find center, because there was enough of it left, they could find center, bore it out, make a sleeve, bore the sleeve. I think they only charged me $100 or $200 for it, bargain of the week. Let's see if we can get this here. Try the steel hammer. Can you see this? Okay. This is a little bit better fit, so I'm going to stick with this instead of going to the socket. And I like it because it does tend to stand up. It's coming. You can. The sound's different. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear it. And of course, you can feel it when it moves a little bit. There we go. Let's get this guy. It's a little bit dirtier. Okay. It's to clean. This is exposed to the elements. The other ones are inside. This is where a guy had a comment, how do I make it not leak? Well, it's awful hard. Mostly it's the rings have a lot of blow-by, and it pressurizes the cases, and you're going to have a leaker until you get a top end. It can weep a little around this hole, around the counter shaft. You don't glom a bunch of silicone. You could just a thin wipe of silicone, towards the cap end even. get it started, you know, get it nice and square, drive it in from this side. Otherwise, you could put a tiny little bit of silicone here on the case and drive it in this way, which you might prefer because you can use one of these bearing drivers that'll keep it square, and drive it in this way. I hammer them in. I assume you're supposed to use a press. And then the other place, there's some weeping. Same thing, you got to be ultra careful about getting silicone down in here. There's an oil weep hole to do all this, all critical stuff. But you can put just the tiniest bit of silicone on the outside part of the transmission sprocket. So then it drives on, just the very last part is pushing the silicone out, right? Pushing the silicone this way, keeping it all clean on the inside. And once it's down, you can take that steel washer, that lock washer, the tab that you bend over to keep it in one place. You can put a little silicone on that and on the outside, so when it gets squished down and the nut comes down on it, it puts a little silicone there. But I hate silicone. I live with the leaks now. Don't glue your bike together. Where am I? Getting a little far afield. I was afraid I wouldn't have enough for a show. Okay, like I say, these are 77, or I'm sorry, this is 82 cases. So after the big change in 79. People say the 79 engine is different than everything. All that's different is they provided for both a kickstarter and an electric start with the new cases. And so to move the brake, to do all that, they made the pipes different. 1 year only pipes. That's not the biggest difference. 77 is when the big change came. What else did I want to say? Oh, let's see. We got this closed. We get our hammers back up. You know me. Working out of the box. Gasket scraper. Not too sharp. You see. I do have, can I show you guys that? Oh, that's up in the cutting tools. I do have this thing. Some old Craftsman, where's the Skycam? You swing it out here, it's got a little button, clicks it that way, press the button, it goes further, you know, all these. The danger with this, because it's got a, you know, shaver, a razor here, you know, the old straight razor with the spine on it. It's so sharp it can, you know, it's already, I feel it digging in. So this might be a thing for, okay. Let chemistry do the work. We're gonna wash this case first to get all the oil off of it. You just do that in the sink in the dish. You know. Oh, I looked up dishwashing. I said, I'll put it in the dishwasher like guys used to talk about. Apparently there is no dishwashing soap that is safe. It all discolors aluminum or does something. So I take back, I might try dishwashing. So I'm going to stop. Let's let chemistry, when I put this in carb cleaner, that'll come off, I guarantee you. So close this up, put this here. This doesn't go here. This file, that goes up here. This goes down here. I even forgot where this one came from. Uh-oh. I think it came from where these punches are. I bought this new, I bought it used on Craigslist because it's grip latch, right? It's got, you lift up on these handles. So if the thing got 5 drawers open like when I was a kid and it starts to fall, it keeps the other drawers from sliding open. I love grip latch. So does Wes over at Watch Wes Work, bless his heart. He bought some modern, there's one Chinese company. It looks pretty good. It might be the same company that made the grip latch, but who knows. So now, you know, I got the VIN number covered. Don't worry about that. I'm gonna work on getting this out. I might have to take a propane torch around here. Oh, Kroil. Let's see if I got some Kroil. Yes, industrial Aero size Kroil. First, since I have machinist friends, I'm part of the I don't like WD-30 for anything. WD means water dispersant, which means they put an emulsion in with like kerosene oil, real light oil, and it will absorb water. You know, maybe spraying your ignition cap, you know, it'll take some moisture off of it and it won't spark, you know, your ignition won't spark. But it also keeps that water against the metal. So my buddies, machinist buddies, oh, I sprayed WD-40 on the ways of the machine. It rusts because it takes water from the air, emulsifies it, gets it mixed in, and then holds it up against the metal. Instead, for loosening stuff, Kroil. Because I'm used to read trade papers, mechanical engineering trade papers. Don't spoil it, Kroil it. So no advertising, I don't get nothing for this. I just am a Kroil believer. This is Aerocroil, the oil that creeps, loosen frozen metal parts. Let's try this right here. We're going to put it on this stud while we mess around. That's why I'm in my work clothes, because I'm middle of the day. It's going to be a little engineering to figure out how to do this. We're going to leave the studs in. I hardly ever take the studs out, especially because they're threaded. Can you see? You see on this one? They're threaded all the way down to the base, so there's no way to get them out without galling them up. And then I leave these oil feeds for the steel oil lines. You know, if you take them out, then when you put them in, you go in a little further. It widens the distance to the head, and maybe the pipe doesn't fit right. I leave those. We'll just have to be real careful. I'm going to get the press. I'm not going to use a hammer to drive this race out, because with the press, that's what I made the mistake here and ruined that case, right, which we saved. It's in the 77. I drive it, you know, every day. As I was using the press, pressing this out with the wrong drift, so I cracked the case all here. Pat said, don't you, I said, I thought you said it was the right thing, wah, wah. He said, don't you feel things when you work? So as I was pressing, I should have seen that gauge, like even this cheap Chinese $250 thing, I should have saw the gauge go to 5-10 tons. It's like, no, that's too much. That's too much of a press. Comes with experience. So I might wheel the press here. We'll see. Maybe, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Anyway, that's Kroil. We're working on this stud. Ooh, look, it's already seemed to have, this stuff is great. All right, so we'll be back getting this stud off. I'm thinking either a pipe wrench, because it's longer, or it's got to, you know, I'm going to have to scar this thing up. There are guys that always with 2 big nuts. I'll see if I got 2 big nuts, see if I can take it off that way. That way you don't scar up this. It does have a clean, a clean section here that you can put. All right, back in a flash when I do some cogitating. Okay, back almost instantly. I told you about how I gave all my nuts and bolts away, you know, brand new, whole bunch, because they were heavy. I didn't want to move them from Silicon Valley, California to Florida. By some miracle, just my oddball nuts, you know, junk nuts, see on the Skycam, I've got 2 that are not only the right thread for this stud, but are different sizes, so I can use 2 different wrenches. So we're live now. I've Kroiled it. I don't know how much time. I'll get this one down a little bit. We'll do this one here. Put the 3/4 inch wrench here. This is a 7/8. Come on, tighten. Get it a little bit closer. Okay, now let's see. Something's turning. The nuts are turning. All right. Let's see, this may be that's not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Okay, so this is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Squeeze. Should we try them both? The constant battle. All right, let's get this here. Let's get this here. Like that. Let's go down one. Something turned. It felt like it was a stud, but I couldn't see what was moving. The nuts are moving. Maybe the stud stays in. You know, how much heat, how much misery do you want to do? I also told myself I'd get this out before, but I tell myself a lot of stuff. And like I told you folks, I don't rehearse. How are we going to do this? No, wrong way, Corrigan. You old enough to hear about wrong way Corrigan? My parents talked about some football player who got a touchdown. You ran the wrong way. Got a touchdown for the other team. try it like this sometimes. You can put this here. Good thing I kept the safety glasses on, huh? Because I'm pressing down on this other wrench. Can you see it? Sorry. Can't even see it anyway. I'm pressing down on this wrench here. Hopefully it'll tend to tighten. Can't really put an impact, although that would help. Let's abandon our beautiful double wrench principle and do something, probably a mistake. A rigid pipe wrench. How's the sky cam? I'm moving stuff around. Like I say, I don't rehearse so everything goes perfect. I'd rather show you all the things that go wrong. Okay, that ain't gonna work. Close a little bit more. Okay, this is gonna scar the stud up, but God, you can tell that the people, you know, they designed, what my buddy said, these guys have never been off the carpet. The people who drew all this up and made this case almost impossible to work on. Let's see if we can, oh, there we go. Wait a minute, maybe I had it loose. Did I actually get this? Might have been loose and I just didn't realize it. I don't know. But it's coming now. Or the Kroil, just those few minutes, right? You're supposed to Kroil it the day before, right? Go watch TV for a day and come back. But I can tell you one thing. Taking a propane torch to a case can hardly hurt it. I mean, you want all the roller bearings and stuff out. And I should have pushed this one. I'm avoiding doing this because I have never done it and have no idea. But either that little bit of pipe wrench. Now, I'm not going to put this in with those bearings. That plastic bag with the bearings stays with the bearings. Makes me think maybe I should keep these two nuts on this. Well, what if you're a shop, right? You don't want to put these two nuts or tools. You got sound, yeah, you got all that. You can't see in the sky cam very well. All right, so let's get this guy down here. Let's get our tools here, here. Okie doke. So this stud will go in its own plastic bag for now. Of course, it all goes in the those really useful. They're expensive, I know. I'm surprised nobody's, hey, I can't afford those. I am a little bit crazy about spending money. Now these, I don't know if I can do it real time. There used to be a place. I can't find them, unfortunately, but I've got cable ties. So theory would be put a cable tie around these two and then put them up here in the thing I could never find. Here it is, where all the special tools are. You know, this little homebrew thing for doing sprockets, the old compensator sprocket. Found that in some other guy's tool chest that he was selling to Duncan, so I bought the whole chest. Various other stuff, a junk sprocket shaft, all the tools I've made or collected. Oh, interesting. You know, I talked about getting the clutch off. This is the thing that goes there, but where's the bar? There's supposed to be a long metal bar that goes with this. Oh, that's a little tragedy. I'll go look for the rest of this. This is stuff goes on the other case half to get the clutch. This goes on one, this goes on one. There's a steel bar that goes across that you can press. It might be in the pullers. Sure enough, here it is. Okay, so here's the rest of that thing I was missing. Well, sure, when I bring the other case half to clean it and drive all the stuff and get, has it got stud? Yeah, it's got its own stud. Get that off. I'll show how this works on the clutch. Okay, starting to remember. Meanwhile, no, not this one. I told you I wasn't going to use this one. It's nice to keep the parts. Okay, now I'm going to go away, wash my hands, think, keep the safety glasses on, think. Reread the service manual that just sounds like, oh no, you just press it out. I'll go look at the picture. I'm pretty sure they press it from the far side. There, you got to be a little careful. Oh, Kroil, my favorite. Don't spoil it. Kroil it. Okay. There's a little lip here. Can you see it? On the oil pump mount. So it's not a perfectly flat surface. So when it's in a press, you know, be sure that this hasn't got everything cocked. You can feel, I looked for presses to refer you folks to. I found some on eBay, 250 bucks, but they don't have the plate. They come with just plain cheap square plates. They don't have the little V in them, which is kind of nice. And these are pretty thick, and they got a hole here and here, right? So nothing stays the same. All right, nothing to do but dig into it. I'm too tired of putting it off. I'm going to go figure out, you know, what fits here, see if I can get it in the press, see if I can at least get it started after checking the service manual to see which way they're driving this, if they do show it. All right, we'll learn together. Bye now. Okay, we're back. Got the case half put here. I read the manual over and over. Safety glasses because of pressure, you know. Here's that, like I said, you can get a full mask if you're worried about something going sprung and knocking your teeth out. It happens. The two plates are carefully placed. I pointed out that oil pump flange mount, right? How it sticks down. It's not flat. So you got to make sure that the two plates are got a gap or something. Trying to push direct. When I get the case out, I'll show you. I don't know anything to do. This is a, what is it, 1 3/16 socket. I think that's what fits on the tranny sprocket. Or maybe it's the Kickstarter shaft. But it's some special socket I bought. Seems to fit pretty good. I don't know anything to do but put the pressure on. I got this. Let's come over here. Tighten this. Can you see it here? Not too bad. Here's the pressure. You can't see that. Well, that was a good sign. It didn't get up, I'd say, over 2 tons. This is a 10-ton press. Another good sign. I didn't even put any Kroil on this. And now I gotta figure out, when it drops, I don't think it'll do any damage. It'll hit the plates. So out here first, out of the way, show you. Socket should fall in too. I don't think I can grab it. Oh, I did. So I just got the socket here. The springs are inside this piston, unlike the old presses where they had a big spring. So there's the socket that I used. How about this? This is exciting. I have this back here in the sockets. And I will carefully pick the case up, get it out. I'll put it on the table here. Carefully get the bearing out. Get this out of the way. Bring the table back so you can see it. So here's this. Let's get this back with the other old bearings. Same thing. Wouldn't hurt. The towels are always dirty. Paper towels are always clean. Get down so you can see me. Can you see? Oh, I got to change this camera over here. The side cam is up in here. So just clean off the edges a little bit. It's just so it is more like a Torrington. The older ones, the older race, 76 and earlier, the racers prefer that setup. Duncan Keller actually has contracted a shafting supplier to make an adapter for these 77 and later cases. It'll put the early model sprocket shafts on. Here's a general theory about pressing stuff out. The manual just said press it out. I think it showed it coming from this side. Here's why, right? If we had this flipped over, if we didn't press it from this side, and I would press it in the same way, you'd be supporting it way out here and pressing on the other side in the middle, right? Kind of warping this. When you flip it over, you've got this problem right here of this high point that you got to make sure your press isn't, you know, the case isn't crooked. But once you get around that with those two plates, right? Look here, where's a good place? You can see it, I guess, on the Skycam a little. See this steel? It's molded right in. Ideally, you would be pressing against that outer steel race that's molded into the aluminum, because then you're not putting any stress on the aluminum. It's kind of impractical. A cool guy shop would do that. Right? They'd make sure that they weren't pressing this molded in steel piece into the aluminum. But you can see by having this flipped over and down, there's more of a direct load path from here going right down, supporting the steel, and the steel is, the aluminum overhangs the steel here, so it's in compression. You're not trying to push this insert out. You can see here the insert's been machined to clear the cans, so big fun. That's a mistake I made on my little aftermarket motor that I'm making 3D printing right now, is I forgot that the pinion shaft needs a wider bearing. So I got to figure out something to do here to make all that work. Meanwhile, I think we're ready to go. I am going to stay in my work clothes. No, I didn't have the audio on, did I? Click. Click. Yeah, there we are. Sorry, didn't have the audio on. I will have narrated instead, or used maybe one of the other microphones. But now we got the real mic. So, hallelujah. I'm going to go take this into the garage where that Chem-Dip carburetor cleaner is. I'm going to stick this down in the Chem-Dip. Well, no, first I'm going to wash it. Dawn would be ideal because Dawn has no lotion to, you know, keep Madge's fingers from screwing up. But Palmolive is good. It won't discolor. It's mild. It's not alkali. It won't discolor the aluminum. And just get all the greasy film, because even in the carb cleaner, you don't want a greasy film. You want that off so the carb cleaner can do its work. The less oil you get and pollute that carb cleaner, the better off you are. So we'll get that going. Here's some of the case sealant. See, Yamabond doesn't act like this. It doesn't just pop off, because this pops off here, gets into this oil hole, screws up your oil pump. Life is not good. All right, otherwise, this bearing presses out as well, but I'm not going to bother with that. This is the main shaft bearing for the transmission. That one I actually built. I doubt I could find it on short notice, but I actually built, no, I can't. I'm not sure where it went. I'll have to go find it. Let's go look in that puller drawer. I took a big cast iron pipe cap and drilled a hole in it and a bolt from the other side, and that's how I pulled in. That's how I replaced one of these. Pulled it out, and that's ideal because then you are pressing against the steel molded in insert and the pressed in race, right? You're keeping the force localized. You're not putting it here. So everything's good. We're going to go get this. I'll take pictures. I don't want to take my camera set up into where the bead blaster and stuff is. I'll take pictures of washing it off in the sink, just normal. And then take pictures now to show you how it looks before bead blasting and after. Okay, so back in a flash. Okay, back just for a minute. I'll go through the whole procedure about washing it and cleaning it and that. This is the first shot coming out of the bead blaster, and people do, you know, it's beautiful, right? I mean, look at this. Looks like new. Can you see it in the sky cam there? Gorgeous. How about this cam over here, right? Bead blasting is like new cases. But you can notice, you know, this is, oh, I should have brought them. The machinist magnifier, where you can get and really examine stuff. The problem here, oh, I don't know if I can ever get you the angle. You might see it. That clown that didn't understand you got blow by and you're getting oil weeping out of the lifter blocks, that's just because your rings are shot, right? Or you've got some kind of breather problem here with that woohoo valve or some other issue going on, or you've plugged the breather. So because she put that silicone, can you see maybe this one? Even though, well, I didn't have this upper part in the carb cleaner, but I used brake clean, you know, super solvent to get all the film and oil off of this before it went in the bead blaster. It's got to be no oil or grease or silicone. And this bore here, see, it's got a bunch of silicone. Let me see, here, let me get my, notice safety glasses when doing bead blasting and blowing it off. And before I came in here, just to show you in the nice studio, a whole bunch of blowing myself, the beads, you know, they're all over. I really think you should go take a shower and not even bring this stuff out to pollute your workplace. But there's some, you know, there's some little scuffs here I haven't got yet. People think the big shiny surfaces, ooh, it's pretty, looks like a new motor. What's important is you do the gaskets, right? That's what you want meticulously clean. Look where I failed here. This might be a little bit of silicone. And then, oh, here's a good angle, if I could catch it. Let me cover up the VIN number here. All right. So, right, back in the bead blaster. You notice a dent here, somebody dropped something on this. You can take a flat file and just kind of make sure there's no high spots, or sometimes a scraper. You can see I'll clean the scraper. So I just wanted to show that real quick before this goes back. I'm going to try to, it's almost like a wire brush. I'll take this out, or a toothbrush. Get all this grungy little pieces of silicone out of here, and then shoot this in the bead blaster again. All right, so we'll be back when that's done. All right, catch you in a bit. Okay, back real quick. I used this brush to get in here. Unbelievable how that silicone had gotten into the pores of the metal, how much brushing. This is a tight brush. This might be ruining the bores. I don't know. It seems pretty mild, but you could still feel, you know, you do it 4 times, you get a paper towel, you get some, and you can still feel, you can feel stuff better than you can see it, right? So, okay, something's goo, you know, you can feel a little, I don't know, little lumps in the bore here. And I think, you know, going like this slowly is probably better if there's going to be an O-ring that has to seal. Hopefully I haven't made it too rough and it'll leak for the rest of the time. But it feels pretty good. See, I'm still getting little bits of silicone out of here. It's unbelievable. Now the bead blaster does do tiny little particles that are just kind of loose. I mean, it's an air blast, right? So it'll get that off. But boy, oh boy. Try to spin it out like that. So this is why I hate silicone and why you shouldn't glue your bike together. I don't even like recommending it for the counter shaft and that nut on your main shaft. So don't silicone your bike together. Lesson learned, all right? Back to the bead blaster to get a couple of these dirty spots and clean these bores again. And hopefully we'll be ready to go. See ya. All right, we're back. I took my own advice, took a shower, cleaned up, new clothes, new pants, not the ones I was out in the garage, all full of bead blast, right? Because we're in the clean part of the shop, you know, not where we paint or grind or sand or polish or bead blast, especially. So here's the case after redoing it, right? Cleaning it up. The bores now are all clean. Let's look at the sky cam. Pretty cool. You may be able to pick up, there's discoloring here. It's pitting from casting porosity. It's right in this area here. It must be a hard place for it to cast. The side cam, there's a pretty good picture. Here's the other side. Right? Nice and clean. So what I did to talk about it, I made a little slideshow because I didn't want to have my camera out in the garage all hot and humid and beads and dirt. So I got a little laptop here with these pictures. So we got the bearings out and all that stuff at the beginning of the show, okay? Because the water doesn't work in the garage yet, I went to the kitchen, time honored, right? And here on this first picture, you can see we used Fantastic. It seemed to me it occurred I might be able to cut through the grease. Didn't work as well as I wanted. I sprayed Fantastic. You see a Scotch-Brite pad. Tried to clean the gasket surfaces. Didn't work completely great. Here's the picture of the case half before we bead blast it. You can see the transmission main shaft. There's all that sticky goo that came out when they sealed that gasket. That didn't come off with the Fantastic or with anything else, so that's a headache. Here's the inside of the engine, looking better just with some water and soap and Fantastic or whatnot, right? So it's starting to look a little better. Then it's all wet, into the garage I got a second air compressor and blow it all off with an air blow off. Get it dry because it has to be completely dry before it goes in the bead blast. But not only dry from water, the problem is if there's any oil residue, the beads will just stick. They won't cut, they won't work. And so you'll see I had that problem, as well as silicone. Watch. Next slide. Okay, this is when I figured out, I still got an oil film, even with the Fantastic and hot water. So brake clean. I could have just picked up a can of carb cleaner. Either one, in my mind, is good stuff. I hope you can still buy it in America. And you can see down in the bottom of the case in the sump, that dark water there, that dark, it's not water, it's dark solvent, where the oil film, you can still see, I haven't done the transmission yet. The bottom of the transmission still got an oily film. All that's got to come off before it goes in the bead blaster. So next picture. Okay, now that we've gone through it with some brake clean, it's in that outside sink where there's no drain hooked up, but at least I could spray solvent on it. Now it's looking a little better. You can see it's still got that junk by the main shaft, but looking a little better. Next picture. Okay, here's the inside. Now it's looking pretty good on the inside where, it's been protected from the elements. No idiot put silicone or grease or gasket material all over it. So the inside looks pretty good already. It's not as good as it looks now with the bead blasting, but to get that junk off the main shaft seal area, I dipped it in this Chem-Dip. And Chem-Dip is some wicked stuff. There's wicked chemical floating on top just to protect you from the really wicked chemical that is down underneath. Like the half-wicked chemical floats on the really, really corrosive stuff. Safety glasses, face shield. I bought super long gloves. Let's come back here real time. Here's these gloves. You'll see a picture of them. Amazon, I'll put the links down. I don't know if they're elbow high, I forget. And they're in Viton, I believe. So really good gloves, because I did get some, putting something in. I splashed some on my forearm ones. Ouch. So back to the pictures. Here it is sitting. I let it sit long enough to soften that up. It wasn't long, a few minutes, 10 minutes maybe. Then that gasket scraper that I used in a previous show, it was all beat up. So I've got stones, so I just took it and cleaned it up. This is part of doing a job, right? You're always taking care of your tools. So I sharpened it, but you can see a pretty high angle, so it's not getting too sharp, all right? And next picture, okay, and here's where I use that, because if it's too sharp, like a razor, then it'll dig in the aluminum and you're just making leaks, right? So here I scraped off, it was all nice and soft, got most of it off. Next pick, now steel wool, right? I had a bunch of steel wool out there, and steel wool will get that little bit of silicone and residue in the more porous areas, not porous, but the rough areas of the casting. I cleaned all that up. Then back, I did some more Fantastic, right? You got to get this thing completely oil-free, completely silicone-free, and completely dry before you put it in the bead blast cabinet to make it look brand new. Next picture, okay, back in the sink, washing it, hot water, because here's my long gloves. Next picture, there's a long glove, right? Pretty cool. So, next picture, okay, back out in the garage, air compressor, blow it off, blow, blow, blow. And I learned this time that a little brake cleaner or carb cleaner in all the blind holes. Because as you're blowing it off, you can still see if there's any grease down in there, it's going to catch the beads. And that happened. We'll show you how I figured that out. Okay, once again, take the steel wool. You can see here some of that red gliptol, I've heard it called. Right above that steel wool, above to the right, there's a little chunk of gliptol on the case half. You can see way up to the right, just as it goes off the picture, a little more of that. I just scraped that off a few minutes ago. Next picture, here's my homemade bead blast cabinet. Built out of, I think, it might just be 1/8 inch. No, it's not 1/8. It's 1/4 inch plexiglass with aluminum frame, you know, aluminum frame drilled and with construction adhesive gluing it all together. Built to size to roll under that sink that I have, that wash sink in the garage. The gloves I got from Summit Air Supply, which is a bead blast company supplier in San Jose, no longer there, I bet. I made them fit by taking gallon caps, you know, for paint cans, the gallon lids, cutting out the center so there's still that lip going around, wrapping that around the glove, putting some glue or silicone, or God, it's been 40 years, I can't remember. Cutting a hole in the plexiglass and then just sticking it. Because remember, all of this is in theory under vacuum. So there's a sloping thing, the bottom, the floor is sloped. You'll see, wait, maybe the next picture will show it. Yeah, okay, so here's looking down inside it. There's a wooden frame with a screen, window screening to hold the part, and then the bead falls through. And you can see that sloped bottom so that the beads all fall away from you to the V, and that's where you can just see the hose looping from the right-hand glove to where the tips of the left hand. That's going down just to a little copper tube stuck into the beads. And it's a pain. My friend Roger Shaw, rest in peace, worked at Duncan's shop, showed me how you can put your hand over the bead blast gun and squeeze, and that blows into the suction tube and kind of fluffs up the beads. And then you go back to bead blasting. Real bead blasters, they have like a little shaker down there. It's much more sophisticated where they pick the beads up. But the gun I bought from Summit, you can see it's just all homebrew. There is a small shop vac built in to the bottom. You'll see, maybe let's try the next picture. No, okay, this is what I bought. California Air Tools 2 horsepower compressor. I use a small nozzle, right? Because a big nozzle, you need a huge 5 horsepower air compressor. This one just barely keeps up. Not great, but it does, and it's quiet. It's not as quiet as my old Craftsman 2-stage, but it's okay. Then the secret, when you're bead blasting, as I did when I started all this, it's kind of like you're chasing a dark color, a darker gray. That's water. You've got water in your air lines, and the water is staining the aluminum as fast as you can bead blast it, and you're going to have all this mottled kind of ugliness. This thing I got in some Triangle Machinery salvage yard. Gosh knows where I found this. It's an air cooler. It's a big radiator meant to cool the air coming out of your compressor. I have a refrigerated one that one day I will hook up, but this one, you know, connects and gets the air cooled down, and then you can just see at the bottom of that picture there's a regulator and then a water trap. So now that the air is all cool, the water will come off it, fall in that trap, and stay out of your beads, because as the beads get wetter and wetter, that's an ugly thing. Matter of fact, sometimes I leave the cover off of the beads after a big session just to make sure they've dried out. But with this thing, and certainly when I hook up the refrigerated air dryer, I won't have any of these problems. But this was critical to get this kind of beautiful silvery uniform finish, all right? Also good when you're painting. And there, the little ball that screws on the bottom of the paint gun also helps. Next picture. This is a shop vac. Now there's a little shop vac built into this thing. You can see the cord coming out below this. But you've got to evacuate. You're blowing air into it with the gun, right? So you got to take that air out. Otherwise, beads will be blowing out every orifice. It's just a mess. So this big hose goes, I've kind of Mickey Mouse taped it to a shop vac, a big old Craftsman shop vac that I turn on that kind of tries to take the air out of this whole assembly as fast as you're blowing it in with the air compressor. Okay, that's a critical part of this. Next, okay, there it is, as set up. I got my little milk crate. Don't tell anybody I absconded with a milk crate. Nailed some carpet to it so I could sit on it, and you know, the two gloves, the top. I learned the top, at first it was just plastic. First it was 1/4 inch plastic. That's too thin because of the shop vac. It sucks that down. But the real problem is it gets all frosty after you use it. The beads will etch plastic. So there's a piece of plate glass, which got cracked, but a piece of plate glass glued or taped or something underside of that top piece. And it's all clear plastics to let light in, so you can see. There's no light built into this, although I should probably put one in as a... I should rebuild this, so I should do a show and just rebuild this from scratch with what I've learned over the 30, 40 years. So that's the homebrew bead bass cabinet. I forgot to go look up. I'm using a finer bead than I've ever used, thinking, you know, it won't carve up or peen up the surface as much. So it's a pretty fine bead, and I'm pretty happy. It's not as quick, right? It takes a lot more, but this is hobby stuff, right? This is do it yourself. This isn't a shop trying to turn work out. Next picture. Okay, here it is. Here's the case sitting in that bead blast cabinet. You can see the gun down at the bottom. Yellow, green thing is I covered up the VIN number. Just with a little bit of work, right? It's all nice and silvery, and that's what fools people. Ooh, it's silvery, I'm done. No. The big surfaces that look pretty and new, that's all exciting and makes customers happy when you show them. The important thing is to bead blast the gasket surfaces. So they're all meticulously clean and prepped. And you'll see some mistakes where we'll show you where I screwed up, like well, that little clip we did before this one. Next picture, okay. That fellow who had blow-by on the lifter blocks, he siliconed them in. Still fighting that, right? Still miserable with that. Here's silicone that I didn't clean. I wasn't careful. I didn't use a headband magnifier to examine closely this before I went in the bead blast. This is after bead blasting. Notice the silicone is still there. The bead blaster, maybe if you had a real powerful bead blaster, but I discourage that because that's what I told you about. Duncan Keller had a piston with so much pressure, it actually egged that piston out enough so that it seized after he ran it. You know, a few thousandths, that's all it took. Just with so much pressure of beads hitting the top of that piston. So a lower pressure, but just have it clean. You can see some silicone over in that right-hand lifter block hole. Let's go to the next picture. Here, okay, that's that hole, right? And you can see beads are everywhere, right? But that's okay. Here's a little dirt on the gasket surface, right? This is by the oil pump. You don't want that, right? You want that all clean. Now that might be a patch of grease or oil you got to clean off, right? Next picture. What am I showing? Oh, the inside of the bores. Because he glommed that stuff, not just above the O-ring where it would make some sense, but below the O-ring, or stuck it all in, total hack, right? And pushed the lifter block in. The entire inside of that bore, that lifter block bore, valve lifter block bore, had a thin coating of silicone that all the Fantastic and CRC Chem-Dip and all the stuff that I put in there didn't take that silicone out, and you can see that dark grayish brown. Next picture. I had a brush, just fits. I hope I haven't ruined that surface. To me, that's how you get silicone, a wire brush, right? So I went in and out, I turned it. It also took paper towels. The stuff was just insidious, you know. You'd think you'd have to brush it clean, and there'd still be little balls of it that were kind of mushed in there. So I tried, the last one I did, I tried like screwing it in and screwing it out so the scratches are with the O-ring, not, you know, going across. Hopefully this thing will seal up, you know, if I ever build this case. This I wanted to show you after I was done. Why you wash your clothes and keep the beads as far away from where you put motors together as you possibly can. That's just some beads that blew out of the side of this thing where I had a hole for that electric cord to pass through, right? So one more picture. Okay, now we're here after I'd blown it off, clean. As I was blowing some of the blind holes, you feel like little stings of beads coming that are way down in those threaded blind holes. That's a problem. And then I realized, ooh, I might have a little oil residue that never got out of there. So I took some brake clean or some carb cleaner, sprayed all of those holes, filled them up, so that should solvent out the oil, then blew it out again. And sure enough, I could feel a couple of little beads come out. If you're screwing anything in here and you feel scratchiness, that's you blew it, right? Some folks like to take a tap and just chase it. I don't think that's necessary, but if you get it clean enough and make sure there's no oil residue and get all the beads and blow it out, you gotta have an air compressor. I'm sorry, there's no way around it. Okay, this is just a nice picture. This will also be for my website article. I mean, it is beautiful, right? You gotta admit, it just looks gorgeous. Looks like brand new, come out of the factory. Here's a top angle of it, looking great. Here's the inside. Same deal, right? It's nice to have that big flat area where the flywheel is all pretty and shiny and ooh, it looks new. But it's the case half gasket surface, you know, where the case glue, the Yamabond goes. That's what you want, meticulously clean. And even after this picture, there was still a little of that red stuff on a little corner. I had to take a putty knife and kind of just scrape the edge of that and get that stuff off, because the last thing you want is that falling into the engine, somehow getting swept into the oil pump. Maybe it binds your oil. It can't be good, right? Can't be good. Next picture, this is the bottom. Once again, just beautiful, gorgeous. The green stripe is where the case half numbers. I don't know if that tells you anything or not. I just figure cover them up. And okay, so that's that. So that's an episode in Bead Blast. What I forgot to do, which I will, this is the trash bag that I had it in when I took it apart. It still had the stuff. Oh God, you can see pitting in here. I wonder if this guy got pitting in these bores. Well, it's later day for inspection. I'm going to go get a fresh, brand new, clean garbage bag, put this in, wrap it up. Even though, you know, there's not a lot of places anymore, oil or stuff for dirt to go, keep it clean, right? I'll throw it in one of those really useful big boxes. I've got that stud out and all that stuff's good here. And meticulously clean. I'm delighted with the way this went, you know, getting these bearings pushed out. So they're all safe and put away. I'll get this put away. Next show, of course, will be the other half, where we get the Timken bearing pushed out. That time, hopefully, I'll remember to use this sound, this microphone, and you hear the satisfying crack when I get the press going. So, thanks so much. Hope your Sportster job goes as well as this one. Hope you can home brew up or buy a Bead Blast cabinet and have fun like that. I will catch you folks next time. Bye now.